Okay, so in this short video, I'm going to guide you through the process of using PowerPoint to create a poster. So I start by opening PowerPoint, and it opens to a default page, but I want to keep in mind the criteria for the poster that I'm presenting. Sakai has specific criteria for poster size, but for this conference, I have a size that I can use. I go to the Design tab page, I click on Slide Size, and I go to Custom Slide Size. I'm going to do Landscape, and I want my poster to actually be 3 feet high by 4 feet wide. So 4 feet wide is 48 inches. 3 feet high is 36 inches. I'm good to go. I want to ensure the fit. Okay, so now I have my poster. I tend to get rid of this because I don't really want to use what they've got there. So I'm going to go ahead and edit and cut. So I have a blank palette to work with. The next thing I do is I create guidelines. You can see that this is already visual. They've created those for you here, but you can go to your view menu and you can select guides if that's not the case. I also like the ruler. I tend to use that from time to time. I do not do grid lines. That's just too much to me, but you use what makes sense for you. So here are my guides. I want to break as you know, for my mock-up, I want to break this up into 3 sections, so I need to create a new guide. I do that by right-clicking on that, and then I'm going to visually kind of place thirds. You can, of course, do this mathematically, but for the sake of speeding this process up, I'm just going to visually kind of create that. I also know I want to save some space up here at the top for a title. So now I somewhat have my mock-up of what I want to do for my project. My next stage is to enter the content. To help this process along, I have already created a document that includes the titles that I want to use for the sections as well as the text, which makes it easy to be able to cut and paste and enter it into my document. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a text box. And I'm going to kind of create a text box that's going to be about where I want the first text to go. Come to my document, highlight, copy, paste into my document. Okay, well that clearly isn't going to work, right? So I'm going to need to revise that text size. I particularly like to use Times New Roman, and I think right now I'm going to go with a 36 text size. Let's just see what happens. Okay, that gives me the space that I want. So number one, I enter the text, I format it. I chose Times New Roman. You choose the font that makes sense to you. I chose the size. In this case, I chose 36. That looks to me like about what I want. And then I'm going to choose the orientation. In this case right now, I want to see what happens if I just center that text. I think that might be what I want to do. So I'm going to continue doing this, adding text. I also want to show you how to do your titles, same way. Cut and paste from your document so that you're ready to go. Enter your title. Again, I prefer to use Times New Roman, but you can do what you want to use. That looks like a pretty good size. I'm going to center that. I'm good to go. So now I'm going to continue adding text across the page. And voila, there's my text and my titles. So my next step now is to enter my visuals. What's great about PowerPoint is you can use PowerPoint to create graphics. You can use the design features insert features to create shapes, do smart art, all kinds of things you can do. Once you've created something, you can then save it as a JPEG image and then simply insert it. So that's what I've done. I'm going to now insert some pictures, which are my graphics. So there's one of my images I want to use. And I've got one more. Okay, my next step before I really start tweaking this and making this pretty is to figure out what my title is. And so like I said, I decided I wanted to use a quote from a student. So I'm going to put that up here. I'm also going to include the logo. So let's start with including the Fort Hays logo. There it is. I'm going to put it somewhere over here, and I obviously want it to be a little bit bigger so it shows up. And then I'm going to import my title. Again, inserting a text box to do so. And then cutting and pasting and entering that text. Okay, I now have all the information I want on my poster. So now is the fun part. At least for me, it's the fun part. This is the design part. This is when I get to decide what are the graphics I want to use, what are the colors I want to use. What about visual space, which currently I have plenty of visual space, right? So how do I want to move things around and play with them? As I mentioned to you before, I had some ideas on what I wanted to use, but I've landed on the idea that I want to use talk boxes. So I'm going to kind of start playing around. I want to make sure that's close enough so that I can see that that title goes with this text. And then I'm going to insert a shape, because if you happen to notice, there are talk boxes right there, callouts. I think I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to create the box that goes around that text. Now, it pops up on top, so I want to right-click, send to back. And I want to send it all the way to the back. Okay. Now, what I also notice is I can play with this feature all that I want. I can move this any place I want. And then I can play with my colors, so I can format. Maybe I want to use more of a green color. And I don't think I want an outline. I think I'm going to go with no outline, right? So I'm going to keep playing with this, and then the very last thing I want to do is I want to group this together. As soon as I've got that placed in exactly the way I want it, I'm going to highlight, and then I'm going to click the Shift button and make sure that I've selected all the parts. And then I'm going to right-click. Oops, I just deleted off of that one. And I'm going to group them. And when I group them like that, now I can select on the feature and I can move it wherever I want it, which helps with my design. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to create my talk bubbles across the screen and play with it a little bit and show you what the finished product looks like. And ta-da, there's my poster. So one of the things I do want to show you is this design tab. You can get a lot of ideas. Of course, if you know PowerPoint, you're familiar with all of these. But what in particular I want to show you is this tab, which shows you your colors. You can go with color schemes, right? You can kind of pick a color scheme here. You can also pick font schemes. So your title would be this one, your text would be this one. And those are some great ideas that you can choose for just kind of playing with your aesthetics and your design. So my last step here is I'm going to zoom in on all of this and I'm going to double check and make sure I don't have any major errors, editing, that sort of thing. So proof it carefully. After you've done that, kind of scoot out and then go back to your view and get rid of your guides and take a moment here to look at your poster, right? Is this aesthetically pleasing, right? Does it make sense? Is this exactly what I want to present? And then your final step is you're going to save it as, I'm just going to save it on my desktop, as a PDF. And like I mentioned before, you do want to check to make sure visually everything worked. All right, so there's my PDF. Let's make that bigger so I can really get a feel for it. Looks pretty good to me. So my last step will be to print it up, proofread it one more time, and then I am done. So there's the design process. I hope you enjoyed it.